Today I will be working in my Joggles disc-bound journal, and this journal has separate pages. It's a nice sturdy paper that can take a lot of mediums, which is always great when you like mixed media. I also like the fact that it has these separate pages that you can take off the discs and you can put them back on when you're done. You can work on one side and then you don't have to worry about fluids dripping through the seams if you like to use wet mediums. For me it's also handier to work with a separate page or a single page that I have lying flat on my desk instead of working in a book that's kind of raised from my desk. So that's another thing that I really like about this. I have taken two pages that I already added a bit of a layer on, and I was going for another look that I didn't get in the way that I wanted. So I just put them aside and started something else. And now I had a plan for this, so I'm going to work on them again. I'm going to add my Distress Oxide inks in different colors, and I'm going to mix the colors a little bit, and I'm going from a darker red kind of color at the bottom to a pink at the top. So I'm going to just add my colors randomly. I'm not fussing much about blending, because I will be adding some water later, so they will do the blending themselves, which is so great about those oxide inks. Now I'm using the blending tool, but you can also use the oxide sprays if you prefer that. And you can even use a brush if you want that. There are different ways to add your Distress Oxide inks to your page, and just do the thing that's most comfortable or well, that you like best. I like it that I can add just tiny bits of color with my blending tool in different places, so I get more of a combination of the colors. For now I'm just using the warm colors to get my base layer down on my page and a nice mix of them. Now I spray some water, and then I'm going to use my heat tool to speed things up and also to stop the colors from really moving on the page. Now I'm just drying and then adding a bit of more water so the colors can move a little bit more in places that I want it to move. The pages curl up a little bit, but that's totally fine because they are quite wet right now. If you want to prevent that, you can spray your back first, so the pages doesn't warp as much, but they will go flat once they are dry again. So no worries there. Once the inks are dry, it's still possible to get rid of any really thicker spots, to dilute them a little bit. And then you just spray some more water. You can dry, you can blot. There are different ways you can go about that. So at the top I wanted pink, a lot of pink. So I just added that with my ink pad straight on the page. That's a really fast way to add your ink to your page. I sprayed some water and I also spread it a little bit with my finger because there was a white spot, and ooh, me and white spots, yeah, okay. White is kind of a thing for me. So I'm using the heat tool, and also while I do that I'm tilting the page so the colors can move a little bit. If there is too much ink or too much water, just blot or just tilt your page and let the excess drip on the paper or a piece of cloth or whatever you want to use for that. So I'm done with my base pages. And now I'm going to stamp a few images. I'm using the dramatic dots set, and this has some, well, really dramatic dots of course, and a really nice big flower, and I like flowers. Flowers are always fun. I'm using my Aquaflow pens to color my flowers and the dramatic dots. And I'm using a bright yellow color and a bright green color. Both the green and the yellow will make these shapes pop from the page. I will also leave a little bit of white along the outside of the shapes. This will also help them pop from the page more. After coloring, I fussy cut all the shapes, and now I'm going to color the outside edge of my pages. So I'm going to use the same ink that I used to stamp with, the VersaFine Clair. It's a dark blue with a hint of dark purple in it. And I'm adding that along the edges of the page with the blending tool. And this will also help to bring out the rest of the colors. Adding a bit of dark can help the rest pop more. So that's what I'm doing here. And well, it's very dramatic, of course, so goes with the dramatic dots. It's a nice combination. I also add a bit of ink directly on the edge, which will be a little bit darker, which I always like to do next to the blended look. So I clean the desk a bit, and now I'm adding all the shapes and flowers. I'm also using partial stamped flowers, and this is a great way to use up some pieces of paper that aren't big enough to fit the complete stamps. And these shapes will go nicely on the edge of a page, or they can hide under another shape, which is also a great way to use up your partial shapes. I'm just fiddling with my shapes like I always do. I'm adding them and moving them around because I like to add and move them and see where I like them best to make sort of a composition. And this is always a fun thing to do, to check where you like them best and what kind of look that you want to get for your page. I'm doodling with a black and a white pen to make the flowers stand in my field and to connect the dramatic dots to make them into flowers or into these well, sort of grasses or lollipop flowers or whatever you want to call them. And doodling is just another relaxed way of crafting. Doodling is just fun. And if you don't like to doodle, you can use a stamp, or you can cut a piece of paper that you glue to your page as a flower stamp. There are lots of options, and well, think outside the box. Always great to think outside the box. So I'm just keep on playing, and I speeded up the video a little bit because, well, when I'm playing and doodling like this, it can get a little bit boring when I don't speed it up. Another thing that's important to keep in mind when you're working in an art journal, it's an art journal, and it doesn't have to be perfect. And well, your perfect may not necessarily be the same as my perfect, but don't be too fussy about it. Make something pretty and just go with the flow and just do what you feel and test and try. This is a fun way to express yourself and to try out things that you like or don't like. And also, when there are things that you don't like, that's totally fine, because then you learn something, then you know next time that something doesn't work or you like it better in a different way. Now I'm working on an art journal page, but you can use this idea also for a card if you like that, or if you prefer making cards instead of making an art journal page. It's just having some fun crafting that's most important, right? It doesn't really matter what you make. So I'm finishing up my page, and then I was thinking, does it need a sentiment? And I don't think so. So I'm not going to add a sentiment, but I am going to do some stamping along the edge with one of the dots, and one of the dots that I haven't used as my flowers yet. And then I'm going over it with an ink blending tool, and then I'm sort of partially smudging the ink, which gives it a little bit softer look along the edge, but it also gets a little bit of texture. So that's another way you can use your stamps. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm finished with my pages. I hope you like it, that you're inspired, and that you're ready to give it a try yourself. So have lots of fun and make sure to keep on crafting.